Here again. We're live. All right. All right, everybody. Welcome back. It is 8:15 on the 26th of November, 2024. We are in the session of the agenda that we are at financial updates. First up, Director Rashan, 2024-2025 capital as of September 30th, 2024.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the capital report was submitted with the council package. And just for a quick update on that, we are right now at half a year with this report. And that would make us, if you look at the actual column, at 5.6 million. With 4.6% of our projects complete. If there's any questions on any of the projects, I will be happy to answer any of them.
Thank you, Director Rashan. Council, you all had it in your packages there. Are there any questions in particular, any of those items? We can take them now. All right, Director Rashan, we'll move on to the next item, general operating as of September 30th.
Thank you, Your Worship. So again, submitted with your council package is the 6-month ending September 30th. So we're 6 months in. We would expect to see about 50% of the budget used at this point, knowing that, of course, seasonal will impact that. Currently, we are reporting a surplus in the general fund of $373,965, and I'd be happy to answer any comments or questions.
Thank you very much, Director Rashan. Are there any questions on general operating, Council? Councillor Ivey.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just generally on the budget numbers submitted here and what I'm seeing on expense, it appears to be that there's been some changes since the budget that we actually put forward at the end of May and that we published on the website. And I'm just wondering if there's a reason for those changes in some of those items, like general government is showing a budget of $4,444,000 compared to what we show on the updated budget at $4,630,000, and it continues through several items. Is there a reason for that, or is that?
So through Your Worship, if you're comparing to budget, there's going to be items that are going to be lumped into different categories depending on the budget item, depending on our financial report. The financial report that's been prepared for you is just generally follows that. There is other items that are broken out or added to. So for instance, education would be added in there. That's not separated, but it's separated on the budget. There's other things like that would be, or sorry, not education, but fire protection, all of those items. So all those would be in there and part of that. So it's a matter of looking at the entirety of the budget, because within the council approved amount of 33.6 million is the total expense line. So it's just a matter of categorization between what we report to you and what is required to be reported to in our budget based on FRAM.
Got it. So thank you. It just, I guess from a review standpoint, so for example, on planning, we've got planning broken out in the update that we received, but planning isn't broken out in the budget summary as part of the May 29th one. So it takes a little bit of analysis going through the backside to be able to marry that up. Is there some way that we're able to get this so we've got consistent to consistent, just because for our purposes in analyzing where we stand on the budget? And I appreciate that, even within planning, that's the easy one to pick, where you've got bylaw and building inspection that is more part of protective services, but they fall underneath the oversight of planning. Yeah. And so is there some way that we might consider that we're able to do a comparison so we're not having to do the cross connections between where somebody is managed relative to where the budget appears in another division? And it may not be easily done, but if we can look at that, I think it'd make it easier for everybody around the table just to understand where things stand on the budget.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No other lights. All right, Carly, we'll get into water utilities as of September 30th.
Thank you, Your Worship. So again, this report was submitted with your package based on the September 30th. This is the last quarter where you will see two financial statements. So I just wanted to highlight that as of October 1st, there'll be a consolidated water utility. So what I did not include projections because, of course, we will be consolidating as of the first day of the next month, and your projections will be updated as of the following meeting. Any questions? I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Director Rashawn, sorry. Questions on water? Councillor Ivy.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I can appreciate that the water utilities will end up being a consolidated financial statement. I think the exercise we've gone through, though, in viewing the transmission of water between what goes from the pre-existing Windsor water utility through the 3 Mile Plains is still a good exercise. It gives us a pretty clear indication of what we have going on by way of water that is working its way through the system, that's getting to the end use customers, and that which is being lost through leakage and the like. And I'd still like to see that continue. I think it's important that we be able to track that, that resource that we're selling. It's valuable, and without knowing where and how that water is flowing, it's hard to know how much we should be allocating into the likes of CETs and so forth for prevention of water loss in the system. I would hope that we would still be seeing that from a reporting standpoint.
So through your worship, if I may address that question. So speaking regarding the water financials, they're under the new consolidated rules and regulations and rates. There is no rate for intermunicipal billing between the former Windsor Water Utility and the Westinghouse Water Utility. So there will be no financial components on the updating financials coming forward. In fact, you will see probably, and I'm giving myself my next projections away, but you'll see that that's probably going to be lower based on budget because, of course, we budget and we weren't sure when we would have the combined rates, et cetera. So you'll see next financials will have a lot of weird up and flows because of fire protection and intermunicipal billing losses. So.
If I could follow up, Your Worship.
Sure.
So thank you, Director Rashawn, on that. I should have been more clear that my comment is about the consumption between the utilities. So it's more about the flow and the volume of water that's flowing between the two of them. As part of what we saw in dealing with the analysis on this, that still, for me, remains an outstanding issue, is that it's the one way for being able to track where the water is going, what's coming from one utility's facilities into another. The billing of it is a separate matter, but the transmission of the water through the system, I think, is important. That this council, that any council, have a view of that, because we're selling that water. No matter what you're selling, whether you're in municipal government or any business, you need to know the number of units you've got going down the pipeline into the warehouse that goes out the door. And I think that's really important that we have an eyeball on that. If you want to comment on that, separate from the financial component, this is about tracking the inventory that we're moving through the pipes.
I think Director Richard would probably be able to speak to the CET position and how they're going to be tracking leak detection, et cetera, but I'll let you comment as well, Director Rashawn.
So if your worship, if you wouldn't mind, I can move into my next presentation, which is on the water consumption report, and just kind of give a quick little synopsis of that, and then we can kind of answer that question if that's okay with Councillor Ivy. So moving into the next report that was given to council as part of their package is the September 30th consumption report. This would account for any closed accounts, adjustments, and water billings through the quarter. So this would again be up to quarter 2, which is ending September 30th. And the variance that you see a lot in there is, of course, we're doing our summer billing, so you might see a little bit of fluctuation there, but we also have a number of days variance in that category between Q1 and Q2. To answer Councillor Ivy's question, again, the consumption report uses what we receive as reads through the billing system to prepare. So once the September 30th date has passed, these meters on the billing side of the system have been made inactive. So no further reads will be coming in through the billing system, but we will be, of course, and Director Richard isn't here to speak to this, but they are monitoring those meters on a weekly basis through their reads as well. So, and Director Richard receives a copy of my report when we do up the consumption reports. So.
I just brought up Manager Burgess there. If you can comment on on how
Yeah.
that'll be tracked, Manager
Yes,
Burgess?
what Director Rashawn just said about the meters is correct. We are, in addition, we're actually putting in some district meters to track the usage, which also helps us find water loss because if one's up and it shouldn't be up, so that will still continue to happen. It just won't be done through the financial system.
If I could follow up with a question through to, and I'm not sure, I'll start with Troy, and then if we do over to Director. So when you read the meters, I guess the question comes to how the data from the meter reads gets into the billing system. And I maybe incorrectly assume that you read the meter, you get the volume, and you must somehow load it into the billing system from the public works side. And that's what drives the billing piece of it. So you're still going to be tracking that same information. Troy, is that correct?
Yeah, it'll be done through the water meters, but not the district water meters. So as it was before October, the 3 Mile Plains utility was metered as it entered. So it would leave the Windsor utility, go into the West Hants utility. That one will no longer be connected to the financial system, but all the water meters are in the district meters. Director Richard won't see that. Public Works sees that and monitors that. And some of which will actually be on SCADA too. So if there is they can give us alarms and that kind of thing.
So from a cost control perspective, from a management of our asset, from a management of our water asset that we have, do we still have the ability to get this same inventory report for water flowing through our system with the combination of the systems? I'd be concerned if we didn't. We need to know how much of that water is actually getting through to the meters that we're billing at residential and business premises, and what it is that I, can sloppily refer to as, spilling out, through cracked pipes and the like.
Through you, Chair. So there's no meters being taken out.
Right.
It's just that the meters that were monitored between utilities will no longer be charged because there's no need of Windsor selling water to West Hants. So that meter's still there. It's still reading. It's just not being billed. And correct me or add to that if you want.
So just,
And so one of the components that help prepare this is getting the ending read and the beginning read of each quarter so that we have comparative data. So that piece is going to be, again, something on the bulk water side of these meters will be something that will be tracked on a weekly basis by Public Works, and they'll be monitoring. We won't see that beginning ending read on the financial side.
So do I need to put a new motion through to have Public Works provide the report? Is that what I need to do in order to be able to still be able to track what's coming out of Windsor and going into 3 Mile Plains? Is that correct? That's all I'm wanting to do, is I still want to see the report so that we know how much water we're losing. Because I think it's important to know that.
that's the question, CAO, going forward, is our council is still looking for that info. Just,
Correct.
I know it's not going through financial, so it won't be a financial update, for example, but it could be
Right.
an operational. It's how much water
Absolutely.
was sent out from utilities. This is how much was billed. This is so.
So maybe more directly, Troy has said that we're not removing any meters. Do we anticipate reading those meters as consistently as we are now in relation to what was for a financial purpose? Now it's for water tracking purposes.
So I don't know the frequency, other than I do know some of the newer ones will be on SCADA, so we'll actually be able to read those by the minute.
So perhaps council, I hear the spirit. I think operationally there's value in understanding what's wasted and what's not.
Mhm.
And of course, we're hoping to turn this into a positive thing. We've talked here, about trying to regain some capacity within the water utility. So within the water loss. So leave it with us if you will. I believe the direction is that we will have consumption reports and not necessarily in alignment with finance, but let's just check with operations. But we will report back we understand your intent or your request.
And I think the main thing council would be really interested to ensure the efficiency of the new CET position if it's working. And this is going to be a way this is one of the ways that we can track that as well. So, so we're good, council, on that. Okay, we'll leave it with you to come back to us and
And we're good with that without a motion. It's purely,
We will continue
come
the
back to-
consumption report, and if for some reason it deviates, you'll see why, and then you can revisit it.
that's perfectly, I'm fine with that if
Right.
that works with. Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship. So a quick question on the Underwood Road bulk meter. For the first quarter and the second quarter, there's quite a difference. And I think you might have told me this in the past, but do you know the reason why there's so much of a difference?
Yeah, so through your worship, to Councillor Smith, there was, with this bulk meter, so overall, there was less days in this quarter. So that's going to result in a little bit of a variance. But with this one too, there was also, the battery was, failing. So we had to replace the battery. So that was where some of the variance is resulting in.
So it just didn't count some of the
Yep.
volume? Okay.
Councillor Ivy.
One last question, if I could, and I'm guessing it might go through Troy, through you, Chair, to Troy. Has to do with, at the last meeting, we've been told that there was potential theft of water taking place at one of the bulk meters. And I think it was specifically at the Underwood meter, not to identify it, but through the improper use of a key or somebody had access to be able to. Have we had anything further on that? Was that volume sufficient that that there should be action taken in some fashion, or do we have a status on that?
So we checked all those valves and well, they're actually open now because we now own the infrastructure, but at that point we didn't. And the volume wouldn't have been much. Really what it was a break
Mhm.
from them working close to it. So it wasn't, I wouldn't call it theft. I would call it, accidental spillage.
Mhm.
There was a valve open that shouldn't have been open, but when they broke the pipe, there was water loss. So, but it wasn't significant.
Got it. So, but again, that's further value in knowing what the water flow is going through the various systems. And so I appreciate that, but whatever we can find on that. Theft wasn't my choice of a word. It was what I was given. So anyways, thank you very much. I'm good for that now.
All right, we're not seeing any more lights on, Director Rashawn, so thank you very much. All right, council, next up, Committee of the Whole, Committee of Council Excerpts, Recommendations, Committee of the Whole from October 8th. We have Public Works Truck Replacement. Deputy Mayor.
Council approves the purchase of a switch and go truck body hoist system mounted on a 2025 CV International chassis and the interchangeable bodies at a cost of $190,186.48 plus 5% contingency and applicable taxes from Joe Johnson Equipment.
Moved by Deputy Mayor.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Morton. Further discussion on the motion. Question has been called. All right, I'm going to go back to your clickers, council. Motion's passed. Thank you very much. Speeding in school zones, letter to Police Advisory Board. Deputy
Count-
Mayor.
Council direct the CAO to write a letter to the Police Advisory Board requesting the installation of school zone digital speed warning signs for all elementary schools in West Hants.
Second.
By Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor McLean. Further discussion on the motion.
Just
Councillor Ivy.
thank you, Mayor Zavian. Just one question. When we talked about this the last time back in October, there was discussion about a possible pending Police Advisory Board meeting that was going to take place. Had that happened as of yet, or did it get adjusted because of the election that would have happened since then, I guess?
It got adjusted. It did not occur. I don't know if we have one scheduled, I think we do actually. Do you know if that's in January? Probably.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McLean.
Oh, sorry.
All right. No further discussions. All right, we'll put that vote up on the screen there. Motion's passed. Thank you very much, everybody. Committee of the whole excerpts from the 12th of November, anti-idling policy bylaw. Deputy Mayor.
Council directs staff to provide an information report on existing policies related to idling, as well as examples of what other municipalities have implemented and what a potential bylaw could look like, and report back by February committee of the whole meeting.
Moved by Deputy Mayor,
Second.
seconded by Councillor Morton. Bob, further discussion? Councillor Ivy.
Thank you, your worship. Just one thing that I guess as part of this report, if it's possible that, and it may very well anyways, discuss about enforcement, which I think for this is something that becomes a real challenge with vehicles parked, idling and moving, and just if that could be included in it.
Yeah, that's what, sorry, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, and I was just gonna speak to that. I won't be supporting it. I mean, it's a tough one. I looked at other municipalities, and as large as we are as a municipality, from Walton to Vaughan's to Hantsport to Falmouth to Brooklyn, to enforce this is going to be very difficult. I think it was originating from the town of Windsor, the area. However, I just think the Motor Vehicle Act covers this as well. A lot of the newer model vehicles have the idling component that the cars shut off. So I just think trying to enforce this and everything that's on staff's plate, our plate, I just don't know how we would ever enforce. A lot of them are 3 minutes. I know Kentville, so to catch somebody in 3 minutes idling is drive-throughs. The list is ongoing. So those are my concerns. So
Thank you very much. Councillor McLean. Scott.
Thank you, Mayor, through you to CAO. Does our public works or basically our municipal fleet have any idling policy in place already?
I bet you Manager Burgess would love to speak to this, but I would say not necessarily, but we do have our GPS on our majority of our fleet, at least the Public Works fleet. I'm looking for Troy to continue to give me the nod there. So we are aware of the idling aspect of it, and I think they're constantly trying to improve on that. But operational procedures, no, but something we could certainly look at.
Well,
Thanks.
it poses some interesting questions because RCMP leave their vehicles on even when they don't occupy them. So, and that's per policy, I believe. When you speak to an RCMP officer, they'll tell you that. I won't support it either because I just don't believe we'll be able to enforce it. So to send staff off to research, expend time when we have multiple other things on the go, I think it's not an efficient time of staff use, but my opinion only. If there's no other question, Councillor Morton.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. It was me that put this forward, and I certainly would disagree that it's not, that it is an efficient use of staff time. I have no idea how you would enforce it either, hence wanting a report to come back to see how we could or would enforce it. So just wanted to put that out there. Certainly something I believe a lot of residents, I don't know how you would do it more in the outlying districts, but we're all one, so the policy would stand for everywhere's. But I do know a lot of residents would like to see something, how we enforce it. I'm sure staff will come back with that in the report.
Thank you very much. Anybody further? Councillor Lee Pinch.
I was just going to comment that it's difficult to make a decision on whether you should or shouldn't have an anti-idling policy without any information, valid information from people who have previously created those policies and what results have come from those. So I think without the report, it's kind of putting the cart before the horse.
Councillor Morton, Paul.
I won't be supporting it. It's just like the noise bylaw. There's no way to enforce it. It's how you gonna do it. So I will not be supporting it.
All right. Anything further from anybody? If not, we'll put it to a vote. We thought your batteries may have been empty. It's 6-6 vote, so motion is defeated. All right. We'll get to the next one. Buyout funding request for funding assistance letter. Say that 10 times. Deputy Mayor.
Council directs staff to write a letter to the province of Nova Scotia and federal government of Canada formally requesting financial support with the funding of a buyout program.
Moved by Deputy Mayor,
Second.
seconded by Councillor Morton. Paul, further discussion on the motion? Nothing? All right, we'll put it to a vote. It frees up again. All right, we're going to do it by a vote of the hands. All those in favor, signify by hands up. Opposed? Motion is passed unanimous. Thank you very much. Financial assistance request for 2024-2025 Warming Center. Deputy Mayor.
Council authorizes the CAO to spend up to $50,000 to support staffing and supervision related needs to support the drop-in warming center during the 2024-25 winter months ending April 15th, 2025 to be funded through the West Hants Operating Reserve.
Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Morton. Paul, further discussion or questions? All right, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor signify by hands up. Opposed? Motion's passed unanimous. Thank you very much. Hansport Fire Department, Wildland Fire Truck, Deputy Mayor.
Council approved the purchase of Hansport Fire Department's Wildland Fire Truck to successful bidder Rocky Mountain Phoenix at a value of $385,963 plus 5% contingency and applicable taxes.
Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Morton. Paul, further discussion, questions or discussion? All right, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor signify by hands up. Opposed? Motion's passed. Thank you very much. That was unanimous as well. Highway 101 signage.
Council approves the additional funding of $14,490 to carry out the scheduled work associated with the Highway 101 signage project to be funded through the West Hants Regional Municipality Operating Reserve.
Moved by Deputy Mayor,
Second.
seconded by Councillor Morton. Paul, Councillor Yanish.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to point out that the picture of the Volkswagen van on looks like the Hants Shore is a very, very beautiful image. But an alert resident pointed out that it seems to encourage camping on the beaches along the Hants Shore. And I just want to point out that there's a possibility of conflict there because the province has put up signs on some of the beaches prohibiting camping. And we also have some municipal parks there, and where camping is also discouraged. So I just want to point out that there's a possibility that we're going to be inadvertently creating a problem and that we may have to dedicate some resources to try and regulate it. That's all.
Valid comments. Is maybe something to take back to the committee and just to ensure CAO on going forward.
Yeah, signage probably in some of our public spaces would be the best. Of course, it's meant to imply the quality of life and some of the experiences, but we'll take that as a challenge to make sure that people use those spaces appropriately. Yeah, thank you.
Further questions? All right, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor signify by hands up. Opposed? One opposed. Councillor Ivey. Motion is passed. Thank you very much. WSEB Hillsville Community Solar Project Letter of Support. Deputy Mayor.
Council direct the CAO to direct staff to write a letter in support of the Hillsville Community Solar Project in principle, pending future approval processes through the planning review.
Moved by Deputy Mayor.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Morton. Paul. Further questions, comments? All right, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor signify by hands up. Opposed? Motion is passed unanimous. Thank you very much. I've declared conflict as well as Councillor Francis on the next one. We'll just step aside and we'll give it to you, Councillor Morton.
All right. Next up is Passant to King Connection.
Council approves given direction to Design Point to move forward with adding detailed design and competition documents and specifications for a portion of King Street to Passant extension to King Street Connection, Phase 2, at an additional cost of $16,000 plus applicable taxes to be funded through the West Hants Operating Reserve.
Moved by Councillor Klein. Is there a seconder? Second by Councillor Morton. Any questions on the motion? Question's been called. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
Veterans Crosswalk, Deputy Mayor.
Council directs staff to include the cost of installing a veterans crosswalk in the vicinity of Victoria Park in the West Hants 2025-2026 budget for council consideration.
Moved by
Second.
Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Moore and Paul. Is there questions, comments? Nothing? All right, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor signify by hands up. Opposed? One opposed? No, you're good. All right, sorry. You're slow on the hand, or I'm quick on the motion is passed unanimous. Thank you very much, everybody. Planning Heritage Advisory Committee recommendations as of the 14th of November. Bear Lake Wind Project Development Agreement. Manager Fougier. Your grand introduction to council, Manager Fougier. You're going to get used to it in a shorter period of time.
Perfect. Hey, thank you, Your Worship. So I'm here tonight to present the Bear Lake Wind Project Development Agreement for council's consideration for first reading. So a completed application was received on March 8, 2024 from Andrew Cosman and Mark Stewart on behalf of Bear Lake Wind Limited. So the application is for a development agreement to permit 11 turbines within the West Hants Regional Municipality. So on December 13, 2023, the Minister of the Department of Environment and Climate Change gave the Bear Lake Wind Farm project an environmental assessment approval subject to a list of conditions that are detailed on that slide.
Carrie, can I interrupt just for a second? Can you pull your mic a little closer? Those folks can't
sorry.
hear you, sorry.
Is that better? Great.
Here.
I'm sorry about that. So all project information is available on that website there. So a little bit about the project. So it's a 15 turbine project, and 11 of those turbines are proposed within West Hants Regional Municipality on 15 separate lots within the municipality, 4 of them being crowned lands, with 6 of those turbines being on those portions, and 11 lots in private ownership with the other 5 turbines there. So this is just another overview of the site. So the primary access to the site will be from Highway 14, and then a emergency access egress will be provided through Chalet Hamlet. So in terms of the generalized future land use of this area, it's of the resource designation. And for zoning, the entire project area is within the general resource zone, which prioritizes resource uses, allows some rural, residential, and commercial uses as well. So a public information meeting was held on April 8th of this year, and the meeting was broadcasted live on our municipal Facebook page. So 80 members of the public attended this meeting, with 20 of them speaking during that meeting. We did receive comments up until April 22nd, 2024, and we received about emails from 61 individuals during that comment period on this application. So in terms of a general summary from the public information meeting and then the letters received, those opposed to the project cited the following concerns. So environmental impacts, too many wind farms, fire suppression, distance to residential areas, decommissioning, impacts of trucks and machinery on Highway 14, need for third party to fact check perceived health impacts, the use of Crown land, lack of financial benefit, and perceived impacts to property values. And those in favor of the project cited that there could be an increased local employment opportunities. The project could provide or will provide community vibrancy fund, bursaries, and proximity payments, help reduce global carbon emissions, the secondary access for Chalet Hamlet, and provincial and federal approval for the project has already been received. So in terms of the details of the development agreement, so of the requirements, the development agreement states that it permits a wind farm, including all associated equipment and facilities necessary for a total of 8 or 11 turbines. Property line setback equal to 1.1 times the height of the turbine, and a setback of 1,000 meters from any turbine to any dwelling, hotel, or motel, and a 550-meter setback from any wood camp. Primary access from Highway 14 and emergency access and egress to be provided to Chalet Hamlet. And stormwater management plan will be required prior to a development permit being issued, as well as a requirement for a decommissioning fund. So of the substantive matters, the uses permitted on the property, including the maximum number of turbines, the minimum setback requirements, the requirements for stormwater management plan, and the secondary emergency access requirement. So in terms of policy, so the municipal planning strategy policy as it relates to this application. So policy for 24.4 enables council to consider installations of large wind turbines or wind farms by a development agreement. So in summary, the criteria are met since the proposed development has received environmental assessment approval from the Minister of Environment and Climate Change. The proposed development is required to provide an updated shadow, flicker assessment, and noise modeling prior to any road construction and or upgrades as specified in the conditions of the environmental assessment approval to ensure that adequate separation distance are maintained from those adjacent land uses to minimize the impacts of noise and shadow, as well as to ensure public safety. Additionally, the turbine selection and siting and requirements for automatic aircraft detection system or dimmable lighting on each turbine will reduce the visual intrusiveness of the proposal. And the developers working directly with representatives from the Nova Scotia Department of Public Works to ensure all necessary permits and road upgrades are completed. So from a general policy perspective, policy 1631 states general criteria for development agreements and amendments to the land use bylaw. In summary, the criteria has been met since the proposal is not considered premature or inappropriate for the area. No municipal costs related to the proposal are anticipated, and the development officer, manager, building and fire inspection services, fire chief, and area manager of the Nova Scotia Department of Public Works have no concerns which have not been addressed in this report. So the application was brought forward to the Planning and Heritage Advisory Committee on October 8th. And after an extensive discussion at the committee, this is the amended motion that was put forward, which includes increasing setbacks to 1.7 kilometers to property lines unless agreed to by property owners, adding a gate to the emergency access road, and adding a non-passive fire system. Next one. So staff reviewed the amended motion and gathered some more information. And after review, staff maintained that their original recommendation is that staff is satisfied that the policy criteria has been met without these additional requirements. So speaking a little bit more to those three items for setbacks, so the Planning and Heritage Advisory Committee recommended a 1.7 kilometer setback to property lines unless permission is granted from owners. So there's currently no policy to support the increased setbacks in our municipal planning documents. And we determined these setbacks in the development agreement based on the environmental assessment and requirements for noise, shadow flicker, and public safety. In terms of the gated access, the Planning and Heritage Advisory Committee recommended adding a gate to the emergency access road. So the applicant met with the Chalet Hamlet Property Owners Association, and while the secondary access is desired, the gate is not, and it's also not a requirement in our municipal planning strategy. And in terms of fire suppression, the Planning and Heritage Advisory Committee recommended changes to the fire suppression system. However, the fire chief confirmed that they are satisfied with the current fire safety approach that is written into the development agreement. So in terms of process, we had our public information meeting on April 8th, followed by a staff review and the Planning and Heritage Advisory Committee meeting on October 10th. We are here tonight for the Regional Council first reading, which will be followed by public hearing and second reading sometime in the new year, followed by a notice placed in the paper and a 14-day appeal period. So this is the recommendation, I guess, on the floor here. So although the Planning and Heritage Advisory Committee added an additional requirement in their motion to council, staff still maintains our recommendation to move forward with the development agreement as is. We recommend that council review the application that was submitted against the policy criteria and review that draft development agreement based on those policy criteria being met. So I will leave the recommendation up on the screen and happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Manager Fougere. I'll put questions to council if there's any questions to Manager Fougere at this point on the report or anything you need clarification on. We're going to leave the debate up to council, but if there's any questions that you need answered as of the report, please pose them now. Councillor Morton.
Oh, thank you, Worship. Feels like we've been talking about this one for some time. Not a file that I've spoken a lot on, actually. It's not, windmills wasn't something I overly understood until, well, this project. So been speaking with a lot of residents, kind of looking back at some of the old, as Jim would call it, old tapes to kind of come up with some questions. And I have a few here that I'll try to paraphrase, some that came from residents, some that I came from trying to read through the DA. And if you'll indulge me and give me 5 minutes to ask some of these, or less, I'll try less because I know you're trying to keep it down. That would be fantastic, if that's okay.
Yep.
Curious if we or if the staff or anybody has mapped out a map that comprises of where Bear Lake's windmills will be, where South Canoes is, and where Benjamin Mills will be, so that we can see, and maybe we have, and I've just missed it, but so that we can see where all of these windmills will be in a cluster on a map. Do we have that? Maybe I missed it. I'm sure something like that's been sent out, but I wasn't able to find it.
PAC and council have given direction in the past to map out setbacks. So we went through that process. Council had that was presented. It's in one of the past packages. I can't recall which month, but it's in the packages. But council never gave direction to map them in relation to Bear or Benjamin Mills or South Canoe. So
okay. So, I guess in relation to that, I know in the DA it was said that the area is suitable, and if I can paraphrase, and I'm not putting words in anyone's mouth, it's suitable because we've already have a couple projects there, I guess. So I'm curious with this one coming in, if or if there's one forthcoming, a cumulative visual effects study, if there's any of that, if something like that is coming.
council hasn't given that direction to carry that out.
Okay, we'll get. Sorry, just let me make my notes so I can make something at the end here. It came up in the last one, that we just spoke about, but it's Carrie, you spoke about it a little bit just a moment ago, but fire suppression. I do note in the DA or in the fire chief's comments, he does say that, let me find it here. That passive fire suppression does meet industry standard, but he has said a couple of times I've seen it in different places, that a non-passive fire suppression system certainly would be ideal. Curious, really, certainly a non-passive meets industry standard. We've learned that in the last one. We've learned that here, but curious why it would be, I know PAC, HAC recommended a non-passive fire suppression. I'm just curious why we would recommend against that. I assume it would be better to have that. But, and again, the fire chief did say it meets industry standard, but he had said a couple of times, or I've seen it a couple of times in there, that a non-passive would be ideal.
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Morton. It's not that we necessarily would recommend against it. It's just with the fire chief's comments coming back saying that they are satisfied with the fire suppression system and the fire emergency plan, that we determine that that criteria has been met because of their comments back to us.
I do have a few more, but if anybody has questions, I can pause and come back if we want to, or unless you want me to.
I can, if I see it, you'll have one more chance there. So I'll give you one more and then I'll get to somebody else and then we'll come back to you for your second time.
Perfect. This one's for, if I can, through your worship, to CAO. Mark, in your comment section at the bottom, you noted in your comment section that some of the matters that were requested by the PACAC contradicted some existing municipal and provincial policies. Just curious, I was hoping I would hear which ones with when Carrie was going through, but just curious, particularly which ones it contradicted, just so I know.
I think Carrie had just touched on those, the gate, setbacks being one. I think she just touched on 3 or 4 of them. I'd have to bring up the report to look at each one of them, but I think in the report, they address each of those items.
Are setbacks actually a part of the MPS? Like, it is a 1 kilometer setback as part of our.
We have no criteria in setbacks right now. Councillor Morton. All right, Councillor Ivey.
Okay. I didn't realize I had that lit, but I was going to. So, if I just let me get so the one point that I'll start by making is that there is nothing to you, through you, Chair, to Planner Fougere. Yeah, thank you. There's nothing in the municipal planning strategy to support the increase in the setbacks. If I can ask, is there anything in there that prevents an increase in the setbacks?
Sorry, through your worship, can you just repeat the question? I just want to make sure I understand.
Well, you had said in giving your presentation that there's nothing in there to increase the setbacks. And so my question is there anything in there to prevent an increase in the setbacks?
So there's no policy criteria that speaks specifically to an actual setback. So policy criteria 424.4B speaks to adequate separation distances are maintained from adjacent land uses to minimize impacts of noise and shadow to ensure public safety. So that's where we looked to the provincial environmental assessment and the requirements around that, and determined the setbacks based off of that. So there's no I guess mechanism to your point there.
Nothing. So if I could paraphrase back, nothing to support it and nothing to prevent it. So if we wanted to put an increase in the setback into the development agreement, we would be at liberty to do so. Whether it flies or not is for somebody else to decide. Do you think I am safe in saying that?
I'll give my opinion on the matter. The role of council is to regulate land use, and
Right.
the whole intent of municipal land strategy and the land use bylaws for council to interpret these applications as they come in and to amend or to shift them to suit the community's need based on our documents. Our documents do not speak to a setback. I think the provincial environmental assessment speaks to it. In past applications, we've set a 1 kilometer to a property or an actual physical residence or a dwelling, 500 meters to a cabin or a camp based at the time of the day on heights, etc. I know there's been discussion around this table in the past couple of months on, well, the heights are very much larger now, so council needs to look at a different setback, for example. But the staff will give you the recommendation, the information that's available out there on the in the proper areas and from the experts that are used currently, and it's council's role to decide based on our community. So hope that long-winded a little bit, but
Well, it does. I'm just trying to clarify before we end up getting into debate, right? And so, because the purpose being part of what you had said, Your Worship, of just responding back to you directly, and sorry,
Yep.
Planner Fugier, from the standpoint of the height of the windmills has changed. There is a criteria that's put in there about separation distances, which talks about it being 1.1 times the height of the windmill. But if we look at 1.1 times the height of a windmill, and if we just assume that the current peak height of the windmills within this development or any of the ones that we have is 500 feet, I saw numbers in there ranging from 200 and some odd up to 490, I think. So just if we can just use 500 as the round number at 1.1 times 500 feet for the separation distance, that's less than we have today with the 1 kilometer setback. And so something's already appears to, perhaps, unless I'm misinterpreting that statement. And I see Director Poirier coming in here that perhaps I'm completely misunderstanding it, but at 1.1 times the height of a windmill, we're less than what's in there for the 1 kilometer now. I'll pause and see if there's.
Director Poirier.
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Ivy's question. So when we're looking at the criteria, like Carrie mentioned, policy 4.2.4B, which is about adequate separation distances. We obviously look to the environmental assessment, as we mentioned. The noise and shadow parameters are set in that, and they are met at the 1,000 meters from dwellings and 500 meters from woods camps. The part about ensuring public safety is that 1.1 times the height of the turbine to lot lines to ensure that if there is a failure of the tower, it does fall within their property. So it does take into consideration in terms of that one, the height of the turbine being greater than previous turbines that have been assessed basically by the municipality.
All right.
Thank you for the clarity on that. It didn't specify safety in that section. It only made it to being to a lot line. So I thought there was something inserted that was speaking to a lot line separate and distinct. But I'll still go back to the fact that we are looking at windmills here that are nearly 50% taller than the average that's in there now at 500 and coming in at 700 feet. That's substantially different. I don't want to get into debate. But for those reasons, when we get in debate, that I'll be looking to challenge what we have here for a setback distance.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Leary Pinch.
So I have a couple of comments, and then I know Councillor Morton still has additional questions. So we're talking about carbon and how these windmills will reduce carbon.
Not to cut you off. Do you have a question to staff?
Oh,
or-
to staff?
Yeah.
I can't. Okay. I won't make a comment at the
Yeah,
moment. Then I'll wait
leave your
for the
comments toward the
comment period.
debate section, and that way we can,
Yeah. So
if there's a clarification item or a question to staff, and I want you to keep your thoughts because I'm very interested in them, but
I have them. It kind of ends up in a question, but I don't think it's a question that can be answered. So I will leave it.
if there's
as
a
is.
question in there, we give it to us now.
Is there anything that tells us the carbon amounts that are reduced by having wind green energy in this area as opposed to the carbon reduction that we are losing from destroying the wetlands, the amount of wetlands that are destroyed with this project.
I'm gonna let you field that one. Manager Bashir.
Through your worship, to Councillor Larry Pinch, sorry. Not as part of our application for the development agreement, that analysis hasn't, it's not a requirement for us to have that information as part of and to consider this application. It might be something that the applicant has, but yeah, not something that we consider as part of this application.
Okay, back to you, Councillor Morton. Or actually, sorry, I'm gonna get to Council McLean first with his first line of questions here.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Through you to Manager Fougere. This development agreement has 4,310 acres of Crown land, province of Nova Scotia land in it. I was just curious, how come the province of Nova Scotia is not in the recommendation?
Through your worship to Councillor McLean. So they're not part of the development agreement. They will not be signing that, but they would be providing a lease to the property owners and the developer in this case.
Okay, thanks.
Back to you, Councillor Morton. Bob.
Thank you, worship. To piggyback, I guess, off of Councillor McLean, will the DA still be enforceable on Crown land if they're not on the DA as a leasee or leaser? It's not our land or private land.
Through you to
Victoria?
Councillor Morton's question, because the province is a higher level of government, they don't have to adhere to our development agreement, but they will be signing a lease that's more stringent on the property developer for the wind farm as part of their lease process. They're anticipating getting that lease signed within the next few months, so it is in process with the province, but they won't be a signatory to our development agreement.
So maybe I'm misreading it, but essentially we lose maybe lack of proper words, but we lose control over those windmills per se that's on Crown land. Like that becomes the province issue. If they say that they can be within 500 feet of a residence, I know they won't say that, but use that as an example to be extreme. That's okay. Is that fair to say that, or no, they still have to follow our DA?
For you, Mayor, to the question, the parameters are still set out in that provincial environmental assessment, so they still have to meet the shadow sound requirements, which are set out in those setbacks that we've outlined in the draft development agreement. And the proposed sites for those turbines on Crown land do meet those setbacks as outlined in the development agreement.
So the only way, sorry again, through your worship,
Sure.
the only way that they wouldn't, so if we decided that we were going to, hypothetical, increase the setback, say to the PACAC recommendation of 1.7, then on that Crown land, they wouldn't necessarily have to fall within that 1.7. They would revert to the province's 1 kilometer. Is that fair to say?
Your staff can only
I know, but
comment on a DA that
I
the
know,
provincial
but-
government, we are a creature of the provincial
I
government. So
get it, but we're writing
We're-
a DA with not in our land, so we, like, it's concerning, because if they're not willing to sign, why aren't they willing to sign? And if we decide we're going to increase these setbacks, that necessarily, they don't necessarily have to follow it, and then those residents that are within that area.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
I'll just give you the example of HRM, provincial statements of interest. They wanted to expedite development. They created a special planning area for HRM. Minister had full authority over all planning matters at the swipe of his pen, for example. So we can create a DA if the province feels it doesn't meet their statements of interest or their way forward, they can change it at any point. Again, we regulate land use here in West Hants. If another level of government feels differently about it, we can't speak on that part at this point. That's up to them. Staff definitely can't speak on their behalf, but I see your light on, Director Poirier, so I'll give it to you.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just want to highlight something that was mentioned obviously in the staff report, and obviously there's a discussion about setbacks. We received the application based on your current policy and criteria required to meet the environmental assessment approval. So if there is a discussion about setback increases, it's more likely a discussion that council does not want to approve the project at second reading rather than increasing the setbacks to something that can't be met by the applicant in this project or proposal. And that's just consideration for the discussion moving forward, I would say.
Got another question that we can take, or?
I'll give you one more.
Yep.
And then I'll leave you alone for a little bit. No, you know what? I'm good.
Councillor McLean, you had your light on, or you're okay? Councillor Ivy, back to you.
Thank you. Just two follow-ups if I could. One is through you to Director Poirier, if I could, just because it was your comment that talked about either rejecting it or putting setbacks in. If we were looking to increase the setback, do you want to see that put in this evening? Or do you want to see that put in, like, what's the preferred? And I don't want to, excuse my wording, that you would look to see, but more appropriate to have it appended in this evening or at public hearing?
Through you, Mayor. Again, to the comments in the staff report, the application is based on the criteria and the policy that is in the planning document, and that's the parameters that the application was based on when it was brought forward by the applicant, and that's what we reviewed it based on. I strongly encourage council to review the application as is and determine if it meets the policy criteria, and if council does not think it meets the policy criteria, reject it at second reading instead of adding in a setback requirement that's not in your policies.
Councillor Ivy.
Thank you. If I could follow up with that, but the 1,000 meters isn't in our policies either.
No. That's correct, but it's based on the environmental assessment approval for shadow and noise flicker. And that's what the policy states in that one that we mentioned, 4.24.4B, which relates to separation for the shadow to minimize the impact of noise and shadow.
Right. So as a general, I've got one other question. Let me ask the question first. Same question as, or I don't know how to put it as a question, as I put it as a statement on the Stormwater Management Plan 2.8. In this document as well, it's the same thing, in which it states that the Stormwater Management Plan shall include details confirming that post-development peak flows leaving property and the Crown land are equal to pre-development peak flows. Whereas historically it's are equal to or better. And so I'm beginning to think that it's not a typo that I'm seeing now, but that it's intent. And I'm not sure why we're seeing that change here, when in fact, again, in my mind, as in the motion with the previous file, being less is where we should be heading. Do we know if that's intended, or is it?
Through your worship to Councillor Ivy, I can't speak to other applications and if the standard that might have been in other development agreements, but this is what was negotiated and agreed upon through this process. The equal to.
Okay, so thank you for that. I'll save my motion for debate. And the only other thing, I guess, is that, you know, we understand through the development agreement process, in fact, it's specified within our planning documents, that this is part of a negotiation process. And this is the only time when council gets to weigh in on the negotiation. It's unfortunate that the negotiation process involves us either accepting or rejecting, because what I've sought with this, or we've tried to, I think, collectively within this chamber over the last number of months, is to get to a common meeting point somewhere in the middle, that we're not so far apart that we end up saying no to wind farms altogether. But it seems like we're being it seems like we're finding ourselves in a spot where either we reject it, right, or we don't like that seems to be.
Not to cut you off, but if there's a question to the staff, we'll take it and then we'll.
Sorry,
get into
I can conclude. Thank you.
I know it's hard. It's hard. You start getting into a thought, but just not to. Right, Councillor Leary Pinch.
So through you, your worship, to Manager Fougere. So we keep hearing that the decision is supposed to be made based on the policies, but then in explanation, the policies for setbacks, the policies for fire suppression, those specific policies do not exist. So are the only policies that planning has used to put forward this application those that have been listed in this PowerPoint, those 4 point?
Through your worship. Excuse me. Yes. So the policies that I listed there, those are the ones that were considered, and we use the policies to set the parameters within the development agreement. And when there is no policies or actions, so in the case of the setbacks, we look to other requirements. So in this case, the environmental assessment and I guess sort of the evidence and the justification around that to come up with, I guess, an appropriate setback in this case.
Any further questions to staff, council? All right, with that, I'll excuse you guys at this point. I think you got off easy, but. All right, folks, we do have a recommendation up on the screen for council consideration. I'm going to open up to the floor for direction from you guys. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship. So it seems over the life of this issue, there's been a lot of public feedback. Not all of it in favor of the project. I've heard about setback distances, fire suppression, the access road, the environmental assessment. That was a big one. I've heard about wildlife corridors, migratory bird corridors, people's water wells being affected by blasting uranium. So those are just a few. It just seems like it's such an unsettled proposition. It seems like it could have been a better relationship could have been made with the community to get the project in place if it was going to happen at all. It just doesn't seem like something that I would want to support, knowing that so many people don't support it. When I look at the Eller's House project and I see how, like warmly that was supported and people were gushing over it, and this one is almost the exact opposite. So just a few comments. One other one though, it was the water retention that Councillor Ivey brought up earlier this evening. To do better, I think that would be something we'd want to see in this project as well if it went forward. So that's it.
Very much. Councillor Leary Pinch.
So comment section time for me. So a couple of my comments and observations. So it was noted tonight in discussion from the gentleman representing the Wildlife Association that tree canopy is important with mainland moose. This project will be removing a large portion of that tree canopy. There's kind of no way around that. Secondly, I think if we look at the responses from residents, 80 people showing up to a public meeting and 61 written responses, I don't know that there's another DA that would compare in public response, and those public responses were not favorable. Those are people showing up in droves because of how this is going to affect the way of life and the properties for which they have worked for day in and day out, just like the rest of us. So I think it's important to take note of that. Also, interestingly enough, we look at Vaughan, and there are a lot of developments there that are cottage country areas that council has approved in the past for those to come into play. I don't know of any other cottage country area for which is surrounded by steel windmills, and people who purchase that land intentionally for the purpose of relaxation, the tranquility, the wildlife, all of which will be removed with an additional wind farm. I think that our residents have been more than accommodating to the 2 other wind farms already in the area. And this and its location would literally put a vast majority of residents in a valley of wind farms in the middle of windmills. And so I just don't think in good conscience with the lack of community collaboration that on top of the other issues as discussed here tonight and as noted, that I could put this forward for approval, especially if I'm representing those who will be most directly affected, which are the residents who live there and their property values and lifestyles.
Just on that comment, council, before we continue on with comments, discussion of council and direction, we are the topic of approval of this project is not for this evening. This is whether council will send it off to a public hearing and second reading. Tonight is just for a first reading. I will caution council to not give it consideration in sending it to public hearing where we can gauge the public's opinion again on the matter and not giving it a fair chance to that stage. Just in the past, council would have almost no defense on any appeal that would come to it in that situation. Just a comment to throw out there at this point. Councillor Yanish.
Yeah, I'd be willing to make the recommendation, Your Worship.
Sure.
Yeah. Move that council gives first reading and will hold a public hearing to consider entering into a development agreement to allow a wind farm on PIDs 450-60068, 453-995-40, 453-995-73, 453-995-32, 4506-0076, 4506-0092, 45061-694, 45062-957, 453-99557, 453-99581, 454-01833, 454-01841, 454-01858, 450-42660, and 450-42694, which is substantively the same as the draft set out in attachment D of the report file 24-03 to the Planning and Heritage Advisory Committee dated October 10th, 2024.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Yanish, seconded by Deputy Mayor, Councillor Morton.
Thank you, Worship. Rupert, you like those recommendations with all those numbers in it, don't you?
Yeah.
I think it's only, send this to public hearing, of course. It's great to hear from the public and I believe it's the right thing to send it through and hear from the public. I think we've heard from them loud and clear, but to give them another shot at it, I guess, is certainly the proper step. But I think for the public and for us, I think we should have an accumulative visual effects study completed so that that's just another thing for the public to know. You know what? Maybe it's going to look great and they'll have flowers in the sky. I don't know, but if we had that, then at least it would be another piece for the public and for us around this table. I don't know if now is the proper time to add that on there or what, but I think it's very important that we see that. It's certainly important for me in making my decisions going forward, that we have an accumulative visual effects study completed. So
Are you requesting more information, you mean? Thinking council needs more information before it sends it to a public hearing for public
Yeah.
consideration, or
I think
Yeah.
it would be. only
council can
appropriate.
request anything it wishes if it needs more information on an item
Sure.
to make an informed decision, I guess.
It's now appropriate time to,
I
there's
believe
a
so.
motion on the table, but I would certainly move something else, but which would be to postpone for more information. But
You can test it with council if you wish.
certainly, I would so move that we postpone the first reading and ask staff to come back to us with an accumulative visual effects study on the project surrounding area.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Morton, seconded by Counselor McLean. Scott, is there further discussion on that motion? Counselor Ivy?
I'll say the same thing I was going to say. That's perfect, Bob. Thank you. You know, well, it is in the context of taking into account what's in front of us and what we talked about in some of the questions with staff and so on. And so just the one point that I'll make here, so this doesn't turn into debate on the motion and the project itself is, as has been identified, is that the vast majority of the properties within this area are recreational resource, even though it's a resource area. These are not properties that are out there necessarily that are, 4, 5, and 6 stories tall, but 7 and 8 stories is what the height of these windmills is. And so even though we say within our documents that this is reasonably consistent with what takes place within a resource zone, that image, I think, that you're requesting, that visual effects study, is something that can show us that and give us a sense of that is maybe on the first wind farm, it might have been okay in the second, but I think we've learned and seen what they talk about in planning, about a change in the environment, a change in social political environments that's bringing about a different view that's taking place here now with this project and, maybe with others going forward. So I think that visual effects study, there's one illustration here where they've shot some of them, but it's not the same as the cumulative visual effects study for what's going to go on out there. None of us would want to have a home sitting underneath, a 7-story beside us when we've been used to having pretty clear sight throughout. So I think it's a really important thing to try and get for information. And if it can be graphically depicted, I think that's a good thing. And I don't know that I need to say anything more at the present time. I'll say, except for the fact that I wish that there be some way to get, again, folks to come closer together on these points. And this may serve to give a sense of that, Bob, as to what it is that is so concerning within the region and the area as it relates to this. Thank you.
Further discussion, Counselor Yanish.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Clarification whether Councillor Morton's motion was an amendment or a new motion, because there was a motion on the floor.
The motion is to postpone the motion on the floor, requesting more information.
For clarity.
I think that's how you worded it there. Any further discussion? So everybody's clear on the motion. Sorry, Counselor Smith?
Not so much on the motion, but I was wondering, do we have the environmental assessment from the past?
Yeah, I'll let you answer it there. It's in.
The environmental assessment for this project is a part of it is in the package, and then online there's all of the appendices in more detail.
Okay, good, thanks.
Further discussion on the motion to postpone for more information? Seeing no lights, we'll put it to a vote. The clicker system still working? It doesn't appear like it is. All right, we're just going to put it to a motion. Vote of hands. Sorry. All those in favor signify by hands up. Opposed. Motion is passed unanimous. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. All right, next up, Kelso Municipal Business Activity Reports. So I know Councillor Ivy has submitted one, but like I said earlier, folks, I think it's important, and per policy, each councillor is required to submit a report. I'm just going to go one by one. If you can just give us a quick summation of what's going on in your districts, it'd be great. So I'll start with Councillor Morton. Bob.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Fairly quiet at the moment in District 6. Lots going on up in the crossing. We just took over Community Way, so dealing with some speeding issues up there. A lot of residents waiting on us to come back with the street light policy. They certainly want their street lights in there, so waiting on that. aside from that, everything's going well. We're starting to decorate in District 6. If you drive through, take a peek at some of the businesses, it's looking fantastic. Actually, it's one of the better years for Christmas lights in District 6 this year.
Some patchwork up on Burgess as well with the road and so.
And Tongue Hill. they're-
Yep, Tongue-
we're-
yep,
we're done there,
perfect.
That's right.
All right, Councillor Whedon, District 4.
Thank you, Mayor. Not really much to report on District 4. There is some work going on the number 1 there between Garland's Crossing and St. Croix, which is coming along pretty nice. A lot of culvert work and things going on, but nothing else to report this time.
Might be good to reach out to the Potentia group. They seem to have the success recipe to good roads, so. Councillor Remy, District 3.
The biggest complaint that I've had recently is a lot of the road conditions. So been chatting with Will about some different things there, as well as some streetlights and some safety concerns around the school. Etta Road was newly paved as well as Lynch Road though, so that's kind of lovely. And besides that, just the Brooklyn Fire Department and the auxiliary has been pretty busy, and they have their annual I want to say staff appreciation. It's not though. It's like, because that's what's in my head now. Anyway, they have their annual banquet. Thank you.
Banquet, yeah.
Their banquet this Saturday. So I'll be in attendance at that. And the Sweets Corner Hall also has been pretty active and actually are taking part in the Winter Carnival this year.
Nice.
So yeah.
Perfect. Councillor McLean, Scott.
Yeah, I had a flood in District 2 down at the Avondale Museum, Heritage Museum. It wasn't like it was last spring, but there was some flooding. I don't think there was any damage. I didn't hear. But there's some talk of, the province doing some work there on the road in the near future, possibly in the next 2 years. Highway 236, Department of Transportation, Public Works had a contract to brush cut all the ways, actually right through to, I think right up into Clarksville, which is great. It's really opened up the sight lines, and you can see wildlife, and I'm dealing with a lot of complaints to do with Highway 236 with the speed limit, where it is a route to the landfill. A lot of speeding vehicles, not all trucks, but there's been lots of reports of vehicle speeding, and the condition of the road is slowly deteriorating. It's been 20 years since it's been reconstructed, paved. So working with the department on that. I believe there's a Christmas tree lighting ceremony the first week in December at the Newport Baptist Church. And there is a breakfast at the Belmont Hall. I believe it's next Saturday morning. Yeah, that's pretty much it for now.
Thank you very much. Councillor Yanish, District 1.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, there continue to be questions about the expansion of the Cogmagan landfill, and residents are also concerned about the continuation of medical services at the Hanshore Community Health Center. Progress is being made there, but it's certainly that's a hot topic. People are quite excited about the renovations to the former Kemp Baptist Church in Somerville and the creation of seniors apartments. That was extensively profiled this week on the CBC News. So that's people are hoping to see people move in the spring. And the Somerville Fire Department seem to be busy renovating their building and also creating a new space, outdoor space for training exercises very similar to what's being offered in Brooklyn.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor, District 5.
Thank you, Mayor. It's been pretty quiet for me through Mill Section, Windsor Fork. It's going to take me a bit to, as a new part of my district, to get in the know out there. So But I am going to have a community meeting out there in the new year and try to familiar myself a little bit better. Newport Station, 3 Mile Plains residents are happy to see Old Highway 1 being paved. There are some water concerns out there, and one that I will probably be bringing to staff committee of the whole is I've had some conversations with residents with how dry it's been and their wells dry and having to purchase bulk water, and the concern on that. It's I mean, we had rain on the weekend, but not enough. There's been a lot of ponds and streams that are drier this year than ever have been. So that's been a concern. Newport Station Hall is having a fundraiser in 3 Mile Plains, and excuse me, I think it's December the 14th. They're having a pancake breakfast with Santa Claus, and I met with them. They're an active group now trying to revitalize the hall and put a dog park out there. So they're looking for fundraising and doing lots out there. And that's it for now.
Geez, Santa should be a counselor. He gets around so much. Counselor Ivy.
He always has the wish list. So thank you, Mayor. So just I guess kind of a basic list of items here, but meetings have started with some of the committees. So glad to have had my first attendance at a Climate Action Committee as a sitting member. PACAC, Planning and Area Advisory Committee has met, as we're aware, based on some of the work that we've done here this evening, and the PIM earlier this month relating to the initiative of Phase 2 at 411 King Street. There's the onboarding sessions that have been held that we've all participated in at various times. There's the workshops that have taken place in that regard. A lot of discussion with residents, water rates, no surprise there. Stormwater as well, and wind farms, all things that we've touched on here this evening. In some case, at the same time, everything here is about water, and not to be lost sight of. In some cases, it's extreme conditions. In other cases, it's, as Councillor Francis has just referenced, the need for people to have water where wells go dry. So important to realize how vital that is to us. Additionally, 2 areas of concern raised, and one that's just come up has to do with tax rates in the border areas. Individuals living in one area of our community that has a lower preferred, less expensive tax rate. Figure out how many adjectives I can wrap around that, and others with a higher value tax rate that can be a difference between which side of the street you're on, or whether you're on one side of the rail track or another. So that's a conversation that'll probably end up coming forward at some point. And then speeding, which seems to be a common matter for all of us. So that's been some of the work aspects of it. Some of the social aspects out there, I'll just touch on, and I may have said some of these already, but the Birthplace of Hockey tournament, a tremendous host engagement that took place here. That, congratulations out to the players and the parents doing the hosting here for that tournament. Teams from away, super positive about it. 2 would be the Remembrance Day service. That was a tremendous turnout, and I've been fortunate to attend many of those, and I think that may have been perhaps one of the largest or top 2 that I've seen for people coming out for that day to honor the veterans in our community. And 3 was the most recent Parade of Light, which was absolutely an amazing show of participation from within the community. And I can tell you, I typically am in the same location for every one of those. And each time you go out and you're standing there wondering, is anybody else going to come to this section of the street to watch the parade go by? And every single time they've got the timing down pat. They know how long it takes to walk, depending on the weather, from the start of the parade to the intersection of Garish and Water, because the street filled up, and it was fantastic, and a great display of support in the community. So congratulations on each of those events to the organizers and planners, community development, and all those that marched in the parade on a cooler day. I'll say a seasonally cool day, but not what we've become accustomed to. Thank you.
Councillor Smith, District. No, Bonnie, sorry. I'm used to saying Councillor McLean, Scott, and Mark. Now I got to do it with you guys and the Mortons, Smiths and Mortons, I'm telling you.
Well, let's see.
District 10.
Remembrance Day, check. It's been mentioned. Veterans, or the the parade. Got it. That's been mentioned. So I have had requests for a couple of coffee dates to chat about some issues down in the flood zone area, which we'll be setting up very soon. And the warming center that's going to be held down at the Aquatic Center, and we're going to be opening. That will be opening or starting up on Sunday, December 1st, and it looks like it should be open 6 to 7 nights a week. So we're kind of glad that that's going forward soon.
Thank you very much. Councillor Smith, John. Just click your light there.
Let's see. Okay, last month there was a movie shot at the Chambers Petro-Canada, and it was amazing how much investment goes into just a 1 or 2 day shoot. The amount of work that they have to do is just incredible. I drove by a few times and it was just amazing. And the amount of people that were there is just unreal. Something else of interest to probably everyone. I saw the RCMP have 5 times in the last 3 weeks probably with cars pulled over right around the intersection of Dyke Road and Back Road. So early in the morning, right when kids are going to school, it was nice to see. I'm sorry for the drivers, but it was nice to see. There's ongoing housing development off Thistle Street. See the land's getting ready for roads and houses. Speeding is still an issue. I see cars going by my place yesterday. There was a car going by probably 90 miles an hour or 90 kilometers an hour. There's a retention pond on Shetland that was drained in the last month, and Director Richard told me that they were looking to see how much it had filled in over the years and whether they were going to have it excavated or not. And I haven't followed up with him to find out, but maybe Manager Burgess and I will get together later and I'll find out. There's a dog park and playground going in on Town Road. It's been in development now for, I think, probably about 2 to 3 years. Matt Dunfield spearheading that, and it's coming along. There's trails actually on the ground, so you can walk in there and follow the trails around. And I guess one of the big ones is just a plug for the Upland Active Transportation Study. It's open now. There's surveys to do. So just make sure your residents know that they can go online and fill out a survey and attend some of the on-site meetings that they have. And lastly, Councillor Morton mentioned it at the beginning. Windsor Fire Department, who is the closest fire department to Falmouth, did a big exercise at Dykeland Lodge last week, and they had a large turnout. It was very, very impressive. They had smoke in the building and the whole 9 yards. And anyway, kudos to them. They did an amazing job. And that's it.
Third best commercial today. Councillor Morton, Paul.
So in Hansford, we had a great turnout for the Remembrance Day at the school. Lots of people there, lots of kids there supporting the veterans as well. So in Hansport, they're going to get the banners are being changed in on December the 2nd. We got the festoon next Thursday. Come meet Santa and Chili Willy. We're having competition in Hansport on the hill. Not many people know this, but there's competition for the reindeer this year for Santa's sleigh. There's 12 up there tonight. I don't know. I got to go judge them, see which 8 I'm going to send out that night. So lots of that still in Hansport. There's probably way too many deer. Coastal erosion is still a big thing in the Evan Street. It's still quite talked about it well. HMCC had the film crew down there as well for the day. The yard was full, and I'm sure they spent some money in Hansport. But looking forward to months to come. Snow clearing's been great for the last month.
Councillor O'Leary. Hard to follow that one.
So I previously mentioned the Christmas tree lighting at the Southwest Hants Fire Society and the Santa Drive-By. The Little Red Schoolhouse is also having a Christmas tree lighting and a fundraiser with some memory ornaments to help support their hall. They recently sanded the floors all down and have re-verithined them, and they look fantastic. They're also having a chili cook-off, which I've never experienced before, so that'll be my first. Some concerns around the current speed limit around the store out home, people pulling out of that parking lot. There's kind of blind corner coming from the Chester Way. Very difficult to get stopped if someone pulls out in front of you. So trying to perhaps prevent a catastrophe there in the future. So something to think about. Craft Market December 7th, put on by the Southwest Hands Auxiliary out at the fire hall. That will be the last main event while they take kind of a break in the winter, just based on volunteers and availability and weather conditions, lots of factors. There's kind of a lull in the winter season at the hall as far as some of those events like the breakfast go. To pick back up in the spring. Water rescue training was completed with the new boat out at Station 5 Fire Hall. So there are 3 in that station water rescue technicians now, certified water rescue technicians who are ready and prepared to respond, which is excellent. 4-H group is now meeting at the Little Red Schoolhouse. So that would be one of the first kind of recreation organizations that is consistently meeting out in the area of Vaughan. Lots of positive feedback from parents out there and caregivers. Short drive, great to be involved, easily accessible. So that's fantastic. They'd love to see more of those things. Coffee with your counselor, following in Mr. Bob Morton's footsteps. There has been some suggestions from residents out there about doing a couple of events like that throughout the year. So I will be spearheading that. And then some concerns over Highway 14, the current road construction. There's been some things going around on social media that somebody was out and said that it wasn't, enough buildup of the road and that it might have to be extended past the winter. Not really sure if that's valid or not. So I'm looking into that to be able to get a response to the residents rather than rumor. And then just the general, and I think that we have heard this before, but tax rates in comparison to service delivery and private developments, that seems to be kind of a consistent topic of conversation with residents out in our district. But overall, lots of volunteers in a small community out there. Lots of people willing to support each other. And it's just a really great little niche out in District 7.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Just on the speeding aspect of things, if residents call in RCMP, no, they're logging this stuff, and I think that's where a lot of concerns or a lot of the checks were happening on around the elementary schools when school was back in, and they were stopping them left and right. But those came from concerns and calls and et cetera, et cetera. So it does help. So, Councillor Whedon.
Yeah, just wanted to add, we had the Ardois Hall breakfast with Mrs. Claus a couple weeks ago, and it was a huge success. And coming up this weekend is the Eller's House breakfast, and I know that I'll be saving a spot for Jim because it is a very, very popular breakfast, and it is the last one of the year. So come on up to the Eller's House breakfast on Saturday morning.
There you go. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor or Deputy Councillor Morton. Sorry.
I just wanted to mention everybody out there listening, if you do have speeding concerns, call the RCMP. They do log it. If I keep calling them, it's just me calling. They want to hear from actual residents. So everyone that can call. And one thing I forgot about Hansport, we do have a bridge now. So I expect to see some of you people on Festoon on the 5th.
There you go. Thank you very much, everybody. It helps council to know what's going on in the district. So those were wonderful. Thank you very much. I know it takes a little bit more time, but it's much appreciated. All right, we're into correspondence. We have 4 under our activity log. Keith O'Coin, Joint Resolution Committee. Correspondence received from province regarding wind turbine setbacks, Lachlan Riel, Halfway River information, flooding and erosion risks, and Pete Hope, teens from Avonview High School and private property. So anything on those correspondences, I'll probably bring something to you guys for committee of the whole in regards to the Avonview High School property. I don't want to make a motion from correspondence. I'd rather just give you a report and have you prepare for it better. So I will be addressing that one at our next committee of the whole, but if there's anything else on the others, we'll take them now. Councillor Ivey.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think just, I guess, 2 points on the letter that came in from Keith. And one is that although, and his letter is in relation to the motion that was put forward and defeated at the prior meeting, as part of the process or the rationale behind that was and looking to get everybody around this table up to speed, so we would know generally what we were voting on, and that, that work still continues because it's been a 3-year process, and it's a lot of information to try and pull in. But I think the other point that comes with that Keith identified within his letter, and we heard it here this evening, and we see it a fair bit, is the acoustics in the room are not great. And that you really end up having to lean into your microphone or turn the volume up on the side in order to raise it. But that staff may want to think about, or we have to put that on the list for something to look at, that these microphones work primarily for the audio as part of the minute taking and so forth, but that we really need to find some way here to be able to improve the acoustics for the folks that are sitting in the gallery, because it's just too easy for them to get lost and not pick up what's being said. And if I could just leverage the same thing on that as part of the Kairos blanket exercise that many of us took place in last week in the community center, the continued challenge with audio in that building. And if we were able to get something like the baffles installed in the rink, or even sheets draped at certain areas conserved to pull down that echo, it would make that facility, I think, far more useful. I think that's all I have here for comments on the correspondence.
Thank you very much. Seeing no more lights. All right, we'll go on. We do have a request from Christmas Angels, folks. I know there's no report attached to it, but there is a piece of correspondence in there. It came in right before the election, so it kind of got shifted in no man's land until now. So that event is this Sunday. They did have a request, but it's coming to you tonight if council would consider that. I know it's late and there's nothing on there, but the organization is in need, and they've asked me to bring it to you guys as a request. And in past years, they were at the community center. A lot of that cost was absorbed at that location, but as it's being at the Avonview High School this year, we don't have the luxury of absorbing that cost in that location. But for council's consideration, Councillor Leary Pinch.
I'm prepared to make a motion
Sure.
sorry, I'm reading off of this, so my apologies. But to support Christmas Angels by donating the requested $5,000 to be used to support their main fundraising event, Webathon, that happens at Avonview High School, with the remaining funds going towards the support of families with the purchase of gift cards.
Second.
Okay, moved by Councillor Leary Pinch, seconded by Councillor Morton Paul. Councillor Francis.
I'm assuming we need to add a funding source. No problem.
Can I give you the chair and just
Sure, Mayor.
If I may, just to make an amendment to the motion and just maybe reword it a bit, that council move to authorize an amount of $5,000 to be granted to the Hants County Christmas Angels to support their work within the West Hants Regional Municipality, to be funded through the operating reserve.
Seconder.
And same intention, just
Councillor
worded.
Yanish.
Yep.
Second. So we're gonna go with the amended motion. Is everyone clear on the amended motion? So we'll just do a show of hands. All those in favor? Motion passed. Now on the original motion, is everyone clear on it or need it to be read? You're good? Okay, as amended. All those in favor? Motion passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. All right. We have another request, Amanda Dunfield, West Hants Regional Municipality Correspondence, Windsor Combined Sewer Overflows Property Valuation Services Corporation. Anything on that request, council? think they're looking for information from PVSC on the familial changes to valuation or assessment values. Council wishes to consider it. Councillor Ivy.
Yeah, I believe that it's something that is worth us considering, and I must apologize. I just saw it in the previous one. I'm not sure when they came in, but I did not see those last two. And probably mostly because I've been operating with a previous version. I know that when we last talked about this, and I wish I was more on my feet here with this right now, that we'd raised it as a question for discussion. We didn't pass a motion on it. I believe in that conversation it was identified that that this is a legislated component to the taxing system that takes place. And as such, I think we were thinking that we could reach out with a question to PVSC to see what their thinking would be on this. And I think we're probably going to hear that same thing. And so I don't want to make any assumptions here. It might be that we get the CAO to weigh in for detail on this, but it forms part of the discussion that we've had regarding the flood zone buyout program that's been taking place. And so I think without reading the entirety of Ms. Dunfield's letter here, that's the intent and purpose of it, that question's been asked. CAO, can you provide any guidance on that?
Just, and I encourage council to consider what Ms. Dunfield is requesting here. Sometimes, you send a letter and you get a response and it creates a change perhaps, but the answer is it's not in the legislation. I did call PVSC, not just due to the letter, but I did call PVSC and the answer is it's not permitted. It's not within the legislation. But that doesn't mean council may not consider doing that. Because I say, sometimes it kind of stimulates change and questions around not only these types of issues, but others. But the answer is it's not in the legislation. But if you want to consider forwarding that, we'll certainly do that.
I can say that there could be two ways about this. One is I think there was a previous change made to the legislation related to PVSC relating to tourism accommodation a few years ago, for which they were regraded. And so this may, in that same fashion, for which we would probably need to get correspondence to our MLA to look to raise this up either within the legislature, within the caucus, to try and get some sort of change in that regard. And as we've talked about here around this table, that while right now we may feel like we're the only area experiencing this flooding or combined sewer overflow flooding to the extent that we are, other areas will, and there can be other advantages to having some capacity in doing something like this when they need to move people along these lines. And similarly, the importance, if I can piggyback in what was in Mr. O'Coin's letter, the importance of having them understand that it's combined sewage overflow that we're dealing with in this regard, that it's not purely flooding, as he notes in his letter, for the letter that we've planned to draft to the province and looking for assistance on the buyout program, to make that distinction and make it clear that this isn't purely a flooding issue, that it's a combined sewage flooding issue. So in that regard, I believe that we should get a motion off to the MLA, seeing if there can be an amendment made to the legislation regarding PVSC for, I don't know what the wording is on that here this evening. Time is of the essence, but I know we meet in a week's time too. I'm kind of on the fly here.
Maybe bring something back to committee of the whole, and it allows you time to word it the way you wish. And
I think it's important to get it right so that the message is received. And
so we'll expect something back to committee of the whole, or
a week's time.
All right.
We're back a week, right?
We're back in a week's time.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, perfect. Anything else on that? All right.
I'll deal with the other letter next week with permission. It's the Lachlan Riel letter that it had been requested to be added, but it didn't make it before. Again, if with permission, I'll speak to it next week in some fashion.
It's in there.
I know, but I didn't see it.
Okay.
The copy of the agenda I pulled down, it wasn't there. nor was the Christmas Angels or Amanda's. So I don't know what the timing was with me on that, but
Okay.
I missed.
All right, there's nothing outgoing, so we'll get to new business. Audit Committee Citizen Member Appointment Recommendation Report. Clerk Snare.
Sorry, cut you off there.
Oh, sorry. Yep. Are your light on?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
10
sorry.
o'clock. You got to make a motion.
Oh, it is 10 o'clock, folks. Sorry. Jeez, that came quick. So we are 10 o'clock as per policy. To continue on, I need a motion of council. We do have 3 new business items that shouldn't take long, but we have a couple of in camera as well that again shouldn't take long, but
Move.
Second.
to continue. Motion made to continue, Councillor Yanush, seconded by Deputy Mayor. All those in favor signify by hands up. Opposed? Motion's passed. Thank you very much, everybody. All right, Audit Committee Citizen Member Appointment Recommendation Report, Clerk Snare.
Thank you, Your Worship. So within your agenda package is a recommendation report to reappoint Megan Halverson to the Audit Committee for the period from November 1st to 2024 to October 31st, 2025. And I'm happy to answer any questions on it.
Thank you, Clerk Snare. Is there any questions to Clerk Snare before we get to a motion? Councillor Leary Pitt? Nope. You want Councillor Ivy?
Yeah, my question, we'd had Ms. Halverson gratefully sitting on committee before. It was brought to my attention just before today's session that that position had previously expired. Do we need to be backdating on this or anything, or are we fine with just rolling this forward? What's the?
Well, it was advertised, I believe, Clerk Snare, and
Through your worship, all the committee vacancies were advertised, and we received no expressions of interest except for Ms. Halverson reoffered.
Yep.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Councillor Leary Pinch, want to make a motion or?
It is recommended that council approves the reappointment of Megan Halverson to the Audit Committee for the period of November 1st, 2024 to October 31st, 2025.
Moved by Councillor Leary Pinch, seconded by Councillor Moore and Paul. Discussion? All right, we'll put it to a vote. The show of hands, all those in favor signify by hands up. Opposed, motion's passed unanimous. Thank you very much. Heritage Grant Application, 281 King Street, PID 450566058, Manager Fougier.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just quickly, we received a Heritage Grant application from the West Hants Historical Society to repair their windows on their building at 281 King Street in Windsor. So this is a registered heritage property, so they are eligible to receive the full grant amount of up to $10,000, which can cover up to 50% of their cost. The application was presented to the Planning and Heritage Advisory Committee and received a positive recommendation, and we're bringing it forward to council tonight for your final consideration.
Thank you, Manager Fougier. Is there any questions to Manager at this point, Council? If not, we'll look for a recommendation, which is up on the screen. If somebody wishes to make that. Deputy Mayor?
The council provide up to 50% of eligible project cost to a maximum of $10,000 to the West Hants Historical Society, owner of 281 King Street, in order to facilitate repairs to windows of the main building located at 281 King Street, and that the funding be provided from account number 01-2-00-26-560-21130, only in accordance with the provisions of the Municipal Heritage Property Conservation Work Grant Policy.
Moved by Deputy Mayor. Is there a second or seconded by Councillor Leary Pinch? Further discussion on the motion? All right, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor signify by hands up. Opposed? Motion's passed unanimous. Thank you very much. Council, we missed a committee of the whole excerpt from the last meeting, and it was just picked up. And I know we've approved the agenda this evening, but it is an excerpt, and it was sent by committee of the whole to this committee. So if can you put up on the screen, Clerk Snare, or? It's in regards to the IT.
Yeah, it's the network video recorder appliance rental. So I assume it's pretty important. It's our cameras. So I'm looking at,
No, okay, so if council will give us some leeway here, if you,
the council approves entering into a rental agreement with Divine Tech IT and Security Services for network video recorder appliance for 3-year term in the amount of $879.49 a month.
moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Morton. Paul, further discussion on the motion? Question has been called. All those in favor signify by hands up. Opposed? One opposed, Councillor Ivy. Motion is passed. Thank you very much. And Public Participation Program Policy Recommendation Report, Director Poirier.
Thank you, Mayor. So during the Planning and Heritage Advisory Committee meeting on October 10th, the committee briefly discussed the current process for notification for public information meetings. At the meeting, the Planning and Heritage Advisory Committee approved a motion to direct staff to bring back the notification distance for public information meetings to the committee for review. So there is a recommendation there from the Planning Advisory Committee requesting council directing staff to bring back that information for further discussion at the committee level.
All right. Any questions to Director Poirier at this point? It's been an item that we've tossed around over the last couple months. If not, I'll look for a direction on the report or on the recommendation. Seeing nothing.
Well,
All right, Councillor Ivy.
I'll make the motion. The council direct staff to bring back the notification distance for public information meetings to the Planning and Heritage Advisory Committee for review.
Moved by Councillor Ivy, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Further discussion on the motion? Question's been called. All those in favor signify by hands up. Opposed? Motion is passed. Thank you very much, everybody. We do have an in-camera session there, September 26th, council in-camera minutes, continuation of September 24th meeting part 2, special council in-camera meeting from October 8th. It's a continuation from the September 24th council meeting part 3, land matter, and land matter. If council would like to go in camera, take a motion at this point. Moved by Councillor Morton, Paul, seconded by Councillor Smith, John. All those in favor signify by hands up. Opposed? Motion's passed. Thank you very much.